So I've just come down to look at this awesome Supra from Gerardo at GeForce Motorsports. Tell us a bit about the car, mate.
It's got a built 3 litre, got some fairly high compression pistons. It's got 10.7 to 1 Wiseco pistons.
That is quite high for a turbo combo.
Yeah, when Abu approached me about doing high comp, I was thinking 10 to 1, but
that was the owner's idea, wasn't it?
Yeah, the owner's idea, yeah. So we decided to try fairly high. Well, actually, I think it is the highest they do off the shelf in the Wiseco range, just to see what that would do for us. So yeah, I guess the other unique thing about this car with this combo is the VVTi. It's got some GSC S2 274s, which needed a bit of clearancing to fit those in. This would probably be the biggest that you want to go on a street car.
It's not that common to have VVTi on this kind of horsepower level?
It is. It's getting there now. A lot of the Americans, especially in cars that they do conversions in, because the engines are getting harder to get, they're getting the Aristo engines, which from the 161, which is the VVTi engine, and they're actually taking them a bit further. Normally in the past, you'd stick to doing non-VVTis, but now that I guess the ECUs do a better job at controlling the cam, you can go fairly high power with them, and it's not really any drawbacks. There is a point where the spring pressure and boost works against you, and then you sort of just skip over it and just revert to a non-VVTi head. But with a street car like this, you have the gains in the mid that make it worthwhile, and you're not going to be really pushing that higher boost.
You were saying you've still got a little bit of fine tuning to do.
Yeah, so tonight we were experimenting with the exhaust cam. The other night we had the exhaust cam set to 0 and had just only played with the variable cam on the intake. So we fell just short of our target of 1,000 horsepower. I think we were 8.5 horsepower short. So we decided to play around with the, we got a bit greedy and decided to play around with the exhaust cam timing. -6 degrees on the exhaust cam is our go-to. But in this instance, we've gained a whole bunch of mid-range, but we've lost some on the top range, which is on the top end, which is not really what we expected.
This is still a Toyota crank?
Yeah, so this is still factory crank. Yeah, basically just had a clean up. This motor came out of an Aristo. Actually, the car came to us as a non-turbo SZR 6-speed manual. The owner had purchased a conversion or an engine to do the conversion. His original plan was to just put a moderately sized turbo. Can't quite remember which one it was first, but we've gone through a few different setups in the time that we've had the car here, as far as what moving the plan or changing the plan. I think we stepped up from, at one point there was a Borg Warner S369, then there was an EFR 9180, and then we decided on the G42 at the point where he, instead of putting the standard or the stock bottom end into the car, he decided to fully build it.
But of course, being Toyota, the gearbox is stock?
Yeah, so it's a factory Getrag. There's not that you can do much to those. Not that you would anyway. They're solid box.
What type of clutch is in that?
It's got a custom spec direct clutch. Yeah, it's definitely streetable. We'll have to see how it goes handling some launches and see how it does at the track.
Abu, the owner, has come in here with an NA Supra, and it's going to leave with 1,000 around that mark. It's a bit of a, let's just say it's going to need a bit of a driving style change.
We ran this up at the dyno day in 2018, I think it was, and it took out the NA category with 130 kilowatts at the wheels. So it's jumped up a little then. So what's that? 609 kilowatt increase. Everyone with a Supra comes in here with, I guess the goal, the 1,000 horsepower.
This one's also, if people recognise, that is not a Toyota colour.
Yeah, so it's a Nissan colour from a R34, the Millennium Jade, I think it is. We had the engine bay done while we had the engine out.
And this is, I noticed, a Haltech Elite, was it?
Yeah, so it's got a Haltech Elite 2500 with the Y-band kit, of course. The other thing special with this Haltech setup is it's running 2-stage fuel injection. So it's got the bigger injectors in the primaries, and so we've got 1550s on the primary and 1000s on the secondaries. So we had a bit of, I guess, a little bit of fun tuning on the change, or not the changeover on this, but the introduction of that secondary stage. Normally we've maxed out 1550s at around the 700 kilowatt mark, so we knew with our target that we were going to need the extra fueling, I guess, to have a little bit more lump and make it sound tough. We decided to put the larger injectors on the primary stage, so I guess we've achieved that now. But yeah, it was certainly a bit of a challenge getting that point where it introduces the secondary stage. At this point, we've maxed out the turbo on the turbine side, so we need a larger rehousing. It's got a 1.01 rehousing. Originally we were thinking 1.15, but we wanted response, and we didn't think it was going to be an issue on a 3-litre. From our experience with the race car, that runs a G42 1200 compact with a 1.15 housing. We thought that, this one being a 3-litre would do.
When you say race car, you're referring to the circuit car, right?
Yeah, the circuit car. So Supra, the Castrol livery, Supra. So that's made 820 kilowatts at the hubs with a G42 compact. So we thought we were going to make similar power with this, but obviously we've been hampered by that turbine housing because it just doesn't want to take any more boost. I guess we'll try other tricks. Like we've got a switchable screamer and plumb back gate pipe on this car. We had that open to atmosphere with the screamer, and it didn't make any difference. It altered the boost control slightly, but as far as power, we're still restricted by what's gone through the turbine housing. So that didn't quite work. So
I'm still finding it. Abu's going to go from 130 kilowatts to, I think I saw it earlier, making, was it 570?
So at the moment on off gate pressure, which is around the 21 psi, it's making 570 to 580 kilowatts. We will probably turn that down so we can have, I guess, the ability to play with our mid-range and our launch in case it wants to get away on us. But I guess for now the target was to try to achieve maximum power, and then we'll work back from there. But I guess it works well right in the meat of it with 20 psi. It still makes 580. I think on 25 pound it was making 620 to 640.
So Gerardo, recently you mentioned you'd made a few more changes to this car. So before it comes off the dyno, I thought I'd come down for a quick look, and I can see you've made a huge increase in power. What have you done, mate?
All right, so we've switched to a bigger turbine housing. We've gone with a 1.28 AR rehousing. Because we were making those changes, we decided to switch up from the previous camshafts, and we've gone with a BC 276 this time. And we were actually quite surprised with the increase in the top end I wasn't quite expecting to see that much. Really, the aim was just the 1,000 horsepower, the clean 1,000 horsepower. It's worked out quite well. Obviously, with going with the bigger AR, we've lost some of the mid-range. It already has more mid-range than what you would have with a non-VVTi anyway. So
it's also allowed you to create a bit more boost, is that right?
Yeah, so it's breathing a lot better. It's not being held back. There's no restriction there as such on the turbine side. So that's allowed us to run more boost in the mid. I think that would be close to the absolute max of this turbo, really. We could see some more increases with some head work. This car still has a standard head and standard valves. So if we had tweaked with that, maybe we would have seen a slight increase with maybe less boost, but I think we are spinning the turbo, the compressor wheel to basically the max, because we're not seeing any increase in power with more boost up top. So we ramp it in fairly hard at 5,500 and go up to 42 psi, I think. And then obviously can't hold it because the flow's not there. And it drops down to about 36, 37 psi right at the top at 8,000 RPM. It's got a pretty decent power band. Can't say full boost because I've got it on progressive boost. We don't really have one set target. We've got 4 as it revs. So it goes from 21, 25, 30, 32, 42, and then drops down to 36. Have to be mindful, I suppose, how that power comes on. It's really, it still makes decent power for a 3 litre, below 5,000. People are going to look at that graph and be fairly critical that it's lazy. Overall, I guess it is when you look at the total power, but when you look at the chart and follow it over, it still makes 300 kilowatts at 5.5, makes 250 at 48, 5,000. So really it's like having a small turbo, and then once she kicks in, she shoots you into the into outer space. But so I had to be mindful in the way that we bring it in. There would be no point, especially because this is a street car and this cruiser, there's no point bringing it all in and just breaking loose.
So you've actually dialed it back a touch.
Yeah. So the mid is dialed down, as you can see. That's the boost there. So it goes up in steps. So that's following our target. These things, you don't want to stress them too much as they're coming on. They can live a very long life at high power if you look after them, and shoving that much torque in the mid before it has the RPMs to actually convert that to horsepower is it's not smart. So sort of had to dial that in and have a curve. Not that it's a massive concern not having full boost at 5.5 or 6,000 anyway, because the thing revs to more than you'd feel comfortable revving most engines anyway. So that slight dip at the end is actually the ECU cutting back the timing to try to catch it before the actual limiter. It's got a soft limiter. I think I actually I know that I actually hit that on that last run. So it took me by surprise. I should have set that a little bit lower.
So Gerardo, I was curious to have a look at the dynographs between, this is a G42 1200 and I think it's a 101 housing compared to this current 128.
Yeah, so not the most ideal comparison there because I do have a different boost strategy. The blue line is the 128 and the other 2 lines are the last 2 runs that we had on the 10. If you follow it up to this point here, that's basically running the same duty cycle. I have a different boost strategy here to try to bring it on because at that point it got a bit vertical on those runs that I was having. Backed it off a bit on the duty cycle and then brought it back in at this point. So that gap there, that would be more indicative of the difference all the way around. If you were to join that line to there, at that point, which is at 57 RPM or 5800, and then it gets closer together up the top. and then that's where it can breathe, and I can actually drive the boost and give the power difference. So ultimately, on the street tyres, this is irrelevant. This difference would only be felt because you'd be breaking loose at this point anyway. So, but on the track, this is a difference of like 6-7 mile per hour minimum. So on top of having the bragging rights of making the power, you've got that power all the way to the top. So that's the main difference there in the turbine housings. With the last turbine housing, we were really pushing and trying to get the max out of it. You would have noticed that we weren't running an air filter. We had open inlet on it. And we also ran the switchable plumb back. We took that off and we put it onto Screamer. Some of the owners want to have that option of being able to make the noise. Then I guess recently a conversation came up after one of the other cars was posted on one of the groups where they would make more or less power having it vent into atmosphere. So like we already know from other cars that it really at this power level and with this exhaust size, it's got a 4-inch exhaust all the way. Having it plumb back doesn't make any difference to the total power. The boost control does change. So having it plumb back does increase the amount of duty that you have to give it to bypass it. It doesn't affect the power. This car has a titanium remuffler, so it's loud. Yeah. So really, I don't think it really makes all that much difference. It's just you can hear the tone is different. The noise, the type of noise that comes out. With a 2J that's revving to 8700, you want to hear all of that, not just a big tractor exhaust leak.
So give us a look at this one.
Yep. So that caps off on the front pipe section. So the roundabouts where you would have your factory cat.
So what I wanted to say was this is something that I don't think Barra owners are used to seeing, because they love their external gates.
People made comments about the picture of that plumb back section that we have. The gas flow, the way that we integrate it so far back, if we had it in the dump pipe, it's not ideal. That we've seen some nasty results or some power left behind if you try to integrate it too soon. The exhaust air is really hot and needs some time to cool down, and then needs to flow nicely. So if you do that further back, it really has no bearing on the total power. It's a 60mm gate. That there is for me, it's not to my taste, but we give the customer that choice. It's a matter of just getting under the car, a couple of V-bands, loosening off 13mm bolts, swapping that over, and they get to pick. So for me, especially on a small turbo car, you want to be able to drive it aggressively, give it a squirt. If anything, your tyres might screech, and you hear some nice 2J note come out the back, then you blend into the traffic. You want to take off again, you're not going to be blaring and people thinking that you're a psycho. So, but other people want to be known and they want to be heard and they want the cops to hear them, 2 suburbs away, so they can have the Screamer.
They can drive past kids at the bus stop, as they say.
Well, yeah, they reckon that Supras don't pull chicks, they just pull other guys. So, it might be pulling some more guys if they have the Screamer. I don't know how much credit that buys you, but yeah, I know. I'd rather hear the note coming out the exhaust with the rest of the exhaust rather than hearing an exhaust leak out the front. And plus, you get better flames at the back if it's all blended in together rather than having the flames under your car and possibly burning something there. But not that I want to, but it could rev to 9,000, 9,200, maybe 9,500. The cams can definitely have the flow to keep making power there. As you start approaching the limit of the compressor, you start seeing that the boost doesn't equate to more power. So you're sort of going off that flow chart. You're coming off the efficiency and you're just pumping hot air. But I guess this is now the max that I think that we can get out of this. I think you'd be more than happy with that as far as like the figure.
Last time I was shocked that the owner's gone from 130 to, I think at the time it was 750 or 730 or something.
1,000 was that was the target. So
now you put another 100 horsepower in it.
We were tuning in the heat yesterday when we were doing some runs and doing the the bulk of our testing. Yeah, it wasn't quite happy. It was I think it was 32 degrees in here at one point. So it was choking up, and it's fairly hard to keep fresh air in here when it's pumping out that much hot air at the exhaust. But then today, once it's cleared up, and we had a tweak of the boost, tried some more in the mid, the power's come right up. So it's similar results to what we have out of the 3.4 in the circuit car. Obviously, that runs less boost to achieve this, about 6 or 7 psi less, but it's fairly similar. Really happy, I suppose. He's got an extra 100 more than what he really wanted. So yeah, I think as far as like what we can get out of this one, that would be about it. Head work, bigger valves would make it come on earlier, help it breathe, possibly run less boost there, so we can hit those parts of the compressor map. But I think we can address that at a later stage. Right now, yeah, this is.
I think that's more than enough.
Yeah, so on the street, something like this, once it hits that 5.5, it just smacks straight to limiter. So I think he's got Mickey Thompson 17-inch tyres on it at the moment, fairly wide rim, but I think he'll be switching to a 15, I think, to make the most of this power. And then something like this, given the weight of the car, should run 160 to 165 in a perfect run down the quarter mile. So like definitely some serious power. Big change for him to go from what he was used to. So we'll have to set some lower boost settings, but because we did switch to a 21 psi gate spring, it makes power now, I think it makes it the minimum of 600 to 610 on E80.
So 610 is the lowest at the moment?
At the moment, it's the lowest it'll go. We've still got to do the 98 tune on it, but it should make probably still 550 on its lowest boost setting. But really, like, look, everyone wants flex fuel. I guess you really want it for when you get stuck in a tight spot and you want to go for a cruise a little bit further than what you normally used to. But once you switch to E85, you're not going to find yourself wanting to put 98 in there. So yeah, I guess power is not really a thing to concern so much about how much power we make on 98, but I guess this has the inverse problem that it makes a lot of power. But yeah, we'll see how we go with that. We'll dial in the traction control. This has front and rear wheel speed sensors wired in. So I've been playing around with that on another car and found it to work quite well. I know it's not ideal to be trying it with so much power, but I suppose it's just there as another safety in case it does break loose, it'll catch it for him. And with the Haltech, it does a pretty good job where you can dial in the amount of wheel slip percentage that you want, and it'll bring it back and correct it for you. It's quite effective and makes it a lot more fun than just basically just busting tyres and black tracking. But yeah, see how he goes with that.
Well, hopefully the next video we shoot, we might show it on the road. Yeah,
we'll have to take you for a spin in it and then see what it can trap. Not too sure how much he's going to want to launch this at the track. It'll be pretty savage, and we'll have to launch at fairly high RPMs. But he might just roll off it and just see what he can. What comes after the a soft launch. But it's turned out quite nice with plenty of power to boot for him now to do as he pleases.